So now I'm going to come back over and we're going to take a look at the ability to create objects on the database as well. And what you can see I've got here is types. And what I can really begin to do here is create objects that can hold values, and then I can actually make tables of those objects. So Oracle allows you to really create just about anything you want, and then be able to programmatically operate with those objects once you've created them. So what I have here first is just an object I'm calling my row, and it has two fields in it. So first I'll go ahead and make sure that these objects don't exist by executing a drop on both of them. And then I'm going to go ahead and click this create my row, which is just an object with two fields in it. And if we come over here and look at our types, we'll see that this my row type has been created. And next I want to create another type, which is really a table of this previous type. So this gives me the ability to create an array, if you will, of my row objects that I created up here. So I can have as many of these objects all collected together in a table that contain these fields. So I'm going to go ahead and create this type next. And now you'll see if I refresh my types over here that I have my table of my rows. And now I'm going to actually use these types, these objects, in another function. So what I've got here is what's called a pipeline function, and the beauty of this is now we can actually begin to expose objects as if they were tables. So we can create a group of objects using what we would think of as typical high-level programming language logic, and then we can expose those objects as if they were tables in a database. But what they really are is just a function being executed that returns several rows of data. So here you can see I've got this hello pipeline function. It takes two names as inputs to the function. It based on whether it creates a loop that it goes through 4 times, and based on what position it's in that loop, it returns a row of data that is either the first parameter and the second parameter, or the second parameter and then the first parameter. So we're going to go ahead and create this function, and it'll become a little clearer what this function does here in a second when we execute it. So now there's a special way that we refer to pipeline functions in Oracle, and the way that we do that is we say select star, or you could actually indicate the field names if you wanted to, from table, then our function name, and then we pass the values into that function. So if, again, I'm just using some built-in functionality here where we are invoking the current database user and the current database name as values to pass into this hello pipe function, which will return a set of rows that are exposed as if they are a database table. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this statement. And what we'll see is we've actually been returned 4 rows because the loop inside of our function goes 4 times, and the first time through it gives us our first parameter and then our second parameter. The second time through it gives us our second parameter and then our first parameter, and then it repeats that operation until it gets the end of the loop. So that's just a preview of kind of the power of PL SQL. These are the simplest of examples, but I think it gives a little peek into just the type of operations you can begin doing if you're inclined to. And this can can be extended to calling remote web services, or really just about anything you could possibly dream of. So next we're just going to go over and try and execute this function as our DB nerd user, and you'll see that we have the sort of exact same issue that we had before, where if we haven't granted the ability for this user to execute, this user can't see that function and therefore can't use it. But if we come back here and execute a grant to our DB nerd user, and then jump back over here and execute it, you'll see it now returns, and it's referencing our DB nerd user and doing exactly what we expected the function to do. So what I want you to do for this assignment is I would like you to take a screenshot of your whatever user you use to log into the database and create all of these objects, and then I would like you to have the user that you created a SQL sheet up that shows that you're actually using, able to use all the objects created by your admin user. So the way that we're going to prove that is we're actually going to take these three statements where we're selecting from the table this function and this other function, and we're going to execute them as a script. And when we execute them as a script, you'll see that it actually outputs the values from each one of those objects. So I can see that all of these objects were accessible to this user that was created. And then over here on the left hand side, I can see that all the objects were actually created by the admin user. So what I'd like you to do is just take a screenshot of this right here and submit that as your proof that you did this assignment. And again, this will be an assignment where as long as you were able to complete the task, you get 100%. Otherwise, you get nothing. So by all means, if you're having an issue, please reach out to your classmates or myself, and we'll be sure to help you through it.